And I want you to just take a moment and think, how did you react to that question? Do coaches think they're better than they are? Yeah, sometimes it's easy to think, like, I'm a great coach, but every time I'm really honest with myself, I'm like, there's so much more.
What we do know is how they show up in the world. What's the evidence? What's obvious? And one thing we know that, well, why don't 90% of the coaches do the work? Which means that I know that this is going to stretch me pretty much. But the process of getting feedback and putting your stuff out there, even if it's a book, it's a very uncomfortable process. Same thing as you putting yourself out as a coach.
But also, every coach is very different. Hey, it's Daniel, and you are about to watch a clip from our free podcast, The Coach's Journey, where we help you navigate the surprisingly difficult path of building a coaching business by people who are actually doing it. And we go live, raw, and unedited every week in our free Facebook community. Coaches Nation, welcome to another edition of the Coach's Journey podcast, where we as coaches journey together to become better coaches, to become better business people, to build a better coaching business. And so we're here to help with that. And with that, I've got Faisal and San here, and I'm Daniel Fernandez. And our topic today is, do coaches think we're better than we are at coaching? And I want you to just take a moment and think, how did you react to that question? Do coaches think they're better than they are? Or do you think you're better than you actually are? What's the emotion that comes out when that question gets asked? Because I know I got emotion that peaks when I ask myself that question. So, Faisal, how about you? What comes up when we ask that question? And then I'll share too.
I was actually thinking about that, and today I had a training session on productivity in my community, and I've actually never, even on a training session, never jumped on a call and been fully comfortable. Which means that I know that this is going to stretch me pretty much every coaching call, every training call, whether it's one-on-one or group. And especially there are certain clients on the individual side that stretch you so much. Right before, no matter how prepared I am, I never feel prepared. It's like, I don't know what's going to come out. And sometimes it works out just fine. Sometimes I get stretched. I'm like, I didn't know how to approach this, or I struggled in that process. And this is just normal coaching calls that I have. Forget about like the sales process and showing up for somebody you don't know at all. And then to me, what that tells me is that the process of coaching is actually not easy. And this is coming from somebody who's been doing this for 10 years. It has never been easy. It's I prepare less than before, but the discomfort is to this day, it's there out of it. And depending on the client and the type of session I do, it's always there. And I like it that way because that keeps me on my edge and that keeps pushing me to grow as a coach.
Yeah, as you say that, I'm thinking about myself, and yeah, there's never a call where I'm not like pushing in some way against the discomfort. Whether it's like, am I prepared enough, or maybe I know I'm not prepared enough, or maybe somewhere in the call, this happens a lot actually. Almost every coaching call, there's a moment in the call, at least one, where I'm like, I'm not sure how to go here. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, or a moment where my own stuff comes up, and whether it's like my own. My own concerns about perception, or whether it's my own ability to navigate the situation in front of me. Either way, there's like always growth there. And so I think it's easy. Sometimes I do think that I'm a great coach, and I probably am, but I'm also like not a great coach, because there's like it's like this continuum, right? Like no matter where you're at on the growth of coaching skills, there's always going to be better, like a better coach for you. And there's always going to be a worse coach where you hopefully came from somewhere where you were worse and you got better. Right. And if that's why I think it's so important to be in the game and to always every day or every week have coaching calls on the calendar that you're going to be showing up for and showing up. And I think the key metrics to me is not like how good a coach am I because of this continuum. It's like, am I always do I see a way to get better? Do I see myself getting better? And do I take those learnings and apply them in other sessions? Do I show up overconfident? Do I show up, underconfident? Where's the sweet spot for the person in front of me, right? And like, how can I best like channel the best I have? And then, honestly, the best I have is often helps them get results, but I think I can do better. Like there's a saying that I heard from another coach mentor of mine. It's you know it's that everyone's doing their best, and we can probably do better. Like every coaching session, I show up trying to do my best, my absolute best every time. There's never a call where I'm like, I'm just gonna dial it in, I mean, literally we're dialing in on Zoom calls. But that's not what I mean. Like I'm not
Yeah.
gonna show up and just like give it a half ass. Like I don't remember the last time that ever happened because like I'm always trying to like give it my all. And then at the end of the call, I want to feel like I did. And that's where that's where I always know like I could be better. I could probably do better. And every time I look at a call, I'm like, I could do better at that. I could have done better. Here's where I could have done better. Like after the call, if you do a reflection, say like, where could I have done better as a coach? Where is the piece of that coaching call? At least one, if not more. There's usually many. Where could I have dialed it in better as a coach? Where could I have refined that? Where could I have like been? What can I learn from that call, basically?
Yeah.
And
I,
that's
I
I
love
think the key to remembering like yeah, sometimes it's easy to think like I'm a great coach, but every time I'm really honest with myself, I'm like there's so much more skill that I need to keep on going in the direction I want to go in as a coach.
yeah. So it's funny when you say I'm a great coach or not, or I'm a master coach or not. I actually get very uncomfortable when somebody says it, but the only thing I've been able to do is just stay quiet and not say anything. Because in the past I'd be like, no, I'm not a great coach. I'm not a master. I just when somebody says it, it's usually other people. I don't say it normally, but well, I do posts on it. Sometimes I'll talk about this, what a great coach thinks like and does, but I never refer to myself, I'm the greatest, this and that. I don't think that stuff matters, and I love the
Right.
self-reflection component of it. But that discomfort should tell you a little something about you and how you approach it. There's a paradox here, and the paradox is that we might think that we're good, but how good we are, what determines it? And as human beings, our instinct is, well, compared to other coaches, or compared to this person or that person, whether we're part of a community or we kind of look at other coaches that we're inspired by. But I don't think those are good metrics. The best metric I've found for measuring how good of a coach you are, and this is going to be different for every coach, is how well are you showing up for your clients? And that's the best metric for a couple of reasons. One, because ultimately your clients are going to pay for your business on the business side. Two, your clients are also going to refer other people to you. Three, your network is going to expand because of the kind of clients you're around. And so, which means that if you have clients who are getting good results, they're referring you, they're buying your products, they're connecting you with other people, that actually determines the quality of your network as well. So it actually really doesn't matter how good you are compared to Daniel, me, or some other coach that you're saying. None of that matters. And when coaches say, sometimes I ask coaches, like, how do you feel like you're doing in your coaching business? They were like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing good. This stuff is moving forward. Which, on the one side, it's good that they're keeping a positive mindset. But I know there's a part of him is like, I don't know how I'm doing in my coaching business and what should determine that, or even in my skill set. And for me, like the best metric is, am I getting referrals? Am I getting testimonials? Am I getting introduced to other people? Am I getting invitations to support other people and people's network? And are people renewing with me? Are people signing up with me with their money? And that's what determines the value that your services have in the marketplace. And I want to make a distinction. That doesn't determine your value as a human being. You're a precious snowflake. We all are. If I were to use that, I like
Said
that.
flippantly but truthfully meant.
That was Alex Hormozzi's terminology. We're all precious snowflakes. This does not mean you're less of a human being than somebody else, but your service has value in the market and that's tangible, that can be determined and actually measured based on the money and cash flow that comes in and potential cash flow that comes in long term for a business that determines the value of the asset as well as you build the business forward.
Yeah, you're making me think of something that I feel like this thought has occurred to me before, but it's putting together with something new today. One of the reasons that this is a really interesting question today is like it's really easy to believe I'm a great coach. And then the challenge sometimes is if I go out there and try to quote get coaching clients, and it doesn't work very well. Maybe I don't know what to do. Maybe I'm not actually as good as I think I am, or maybe it's just who knows what it is. There could be a billion reasons why it's not working. But what happens is I know this from my experience is that because I hadn't wanted to risk my belief in like how great a coach I am, I'm afraid to go out there and get rejected. And so because the rejection or quote rejection, as you know, I had experienced this like I was courting one client, potential client, and they turned me down. And of course, like I took that personally and spent time recovering from that and not being willing to go out there again because I couldn't bear the belief at some level subconsciously that maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Maybe I have an inflated sense of like ego even. It's really kind of ego that's talking here where it's like I took it so personally that I couldn't keep on going out there and putting myself out there in the line of fire, so to speak, because then suddenly I have to admit that I got work to do, that I got things to learn. I'm not actually as good as I think I am. This is a lot of psychology that I think I've been through, and so it's really really easy to not put yourself out there because you think you're a good coach because it's fragile. So that's why thinking I'm a good coach is not a useful belief. The point Faisal made is like, are you actually showing up for your people in front of you? Like, are you showing up even in the connection calls? Like, I think like, how am I showing up in the connection calls? Am I showing up with presence, with with actual connection? And then am I leading people to the discovery call? Am I showing up the best I can for people who hire me? Am I showing up the best I can every time? Like, the question isn't am I better than somebody else? The question is am I getting better than my past self? And am I showing up for my clients? And you know that because as Faisal says, they're signing up, they're renewing, they're referring, they're providing testimonials. These are the signs that your skills are that you're a better coach than you used to be, perhaps. And then what happens also is that if you're not putting yourself out there and engaging in things that would demonstrate that, because whether you're afraid or whatever the reason is, then you're not going to actually test that. You're not going to test yourself in those situations, which means you're not going to test the value of what you're bringing to the marketplace. None of which has anything to do with your personal value. Like that feeling of rejection has nothing to do with you. It's more having to do with the value of what you brought. And honestly, just showing up with presence can be really, really valuable to people. So there's a lot of different versions of what's valuable, and it has nothing to do with necessarily comparison.
And I love that you're bringing there might be a hidden subconscious belief or fear or something behind it where and you can see it and usually we don't know what's in people's mind or heart. What we do know is how they show up in the world. What's the evidence? What's obvious? And one thing we know that, well, why don't 90% of the coaches do the work? Why don't they actually put themselves out there? And jokingly, sometimes I would say is that why aren't you shouting from rooftops about your message and about supporting people? Why are you a hidden coach? That's something to self-reflect on and go deeper because very likely there's a part of you that is scared to show up, and that's very likely related to the image that you have of yourself as a coach or a business owner. You don't want to fail, you don't want to come off short, or you don't want to show up in a circumstance where you're not fully serving somebody. Like all those are valid. We all have it. But then what you can measure it by is how often are you showing up and how consistently, no matter the rejection, no matter the discomfort. And that discomfort and the honesty or dishonesty associated with it is the actual thing that actually moves you forward or holds you back. And it's like I just talked to a coach today, this morning, who said, you know what, I did this webinar and I completely stopped. And I didn't know if she meant she stopped in the middle.
In the middle or
I
after
didn't
the
know. So
webinar?
she just said that and she moved from it. And then I had to bring it back. I'm like, what did you mean by that? Did she stop in the middle of She's like, no, I did finish it, but I don't think it worked. And I know exactly what she means because I did that too. I still remember my first ever webinar that I did. It was so uncomfortable. You know how we have like now with Zoom calls, you have a bunch of people on it. We still have the webinar platforms. I don't know who uses them, but in the past we had Go webinar or something. I did my first
Go
webinar on
to.
that.
Yeah.
And I remember there were a bunch of people who were there, and I was talking. I was the only one on video, and I was kind of presenting something. This is like 9 years ago, so I still remember. In the middle of it, I was like, "Are you guys hearing me? Am I just talking to myself?" Because I wasn't
Did
getting
they say anything in
feedback.
the chat?
They weren't saying anything, so I didn't know how to engage them and get them to share things. So I kept stopping and saying, "Is everybody hearing me? I don't know if anybody's listening."
And did you ever get any reinforcement on the webinar? Like
No, well, I did that once, and this is the crazy thing. I
total
even got a
crickets?
sale on that. I got a sale on it, and my perception was that was horrible. And I didn't do that for the next 6 months.
Even though you got a sale?
Even though I got to say, look at
You
the
know, coaches, we're
perception of
so
it.
funny sometimes. Like I've done this so many times. I can't even count. I would do something and it worked, and then I would change and try to do something different to work better. But what I should have done is do the same thing again and get
Because I was
better.
so uncomfortable. I was so uncomfortable with the process, and I was so afraid of
Yeah.
like, am I actually delivering value, not? But I didn't know that the process of business is that you keep testing until you get more feedback, more data. And that's the challenge as you when we say that coaches think that they're better, then deep down they probably don't, but on the surface they're not fully honest with themselves, that you
Yeah.
know what, I need to put this thing to test, not for another person, not compared to another coach, not compared to my ecosystem, but what would my clients think. Right now I'm sending my book that's to be published in the next few months for feedback. It's actually a very uncomfortable process for me. And I'm not even fixing it. So I did the initial editing, I'm sending him like, just go through it. Tell me what landed, what didn't, what stood out, what didn't stand out. Some of it is really good feedback. Some of it is like, hey, this part didn't make any sense. This part, I feel like I was a little bit confused. It is not comfortable for me hearing any of this stuff. I don't know what the hell is going to come back to but that feedback is helping me. Not only that, I'm doing a workshop based on the book, so I'm going to test out some of the ideas on the workshop. I'm already don't have, I have much less sign up than compared to my other workshops because we're testing out the message. We don't know what's working, what's not. And I'm like, I guess that's normal. I'm moving forward. But the process of getting feedback and putting your stuff out there, even if it's a book, it's a very uncomfortable process. Same thing as you putting yourself out as a coach. And pretty much everything you do in business is going to be like that. It's not going to stop. And it's not going to get better either. Because if you're growing, if you're thinking, I remember I used to say to myself, like, at some point I'm going to get comfortable with this process. The only thing that I've gotten comfortable with is the process of discomfort. I'm okay with it now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think there is a fundamental baseline too. Like there's a skill set too. Like the coaching skill sets. There's all these fundamental skill sets too that you can actually get better and it can be measured, right? Like are you able to listen in a call? Like are you able to listen and are you able to reflect back to the client? Are you able to make space for them? Are you able to create safety? There's lots of skill sets in here. So like yes, there's stuff that you can objectively get better at. But also every coach is very different. And every coach's personality and their energy is very different. So you don't have to be like another coach. Maybe there's parts of other coaches, skill sets that you want to emulate and grow that you want to learn from. But like Faisal and I are, for example, we're very different coaches. We're going to have very different client bases. Even if
Yeah,
we were in the same industry, we'd have very different client bases, right?
yeah.
And those are the people who resonate with me versus him. It's probably some people who would from his clients that would not resonate with me at all, and vice versa. A lot of my people would be like, I really don't like Faisal.
That's as heartbreaking as that sounds. I've accepted that that's true.
Yeah, it is true. At the same time, I don't want to let coaches escape the reality that there's often pieces of their skill sets that need to improve to create a better experience and to create a better container for their clients. So
And that
so go ahead.
go for it.
I was gonna say, so it's one of the things we do in our with our pro and core members in CMC. We have a coaching sales clinic where we come in, the group of coaches who are part of the membership come in and we watch the coaching session. And this is something that doesn't happen outside of your in your regular coaching. Like this is private, so we don't get to see you, nobody gets to see anybody else coach typically. And so you don't get that feedback. But in this example, we set this up to do feedback, and there's a long story behind how this evolves because we tested and tested a lot of different ways to do this. And this is the current iteration where we provide feedback to that client and coach, to that coach who is coaching the client in front of the group. And this is a pretty valuable discussion because everybody's learning. Everybody's seeing other ways that other coaches coach. Everybody's seeing some of the debrief and the feedback, and People who are maybe a little bit farther along can say like, "Oh, here's what we saw." And at the same time, people who are early in their journey can actually say, "Well, here's what we saw." Everybody's learning in a different way. One of the beautiful things about that is there is a very clear connection between your coaching skill and your sales skills, and you can actually get that direct feedback, which is so rare. Like it's hard to get the kind of like your clients, are they going to tell you that you sucked? Probably not. For them. Like it's rare for a client to say that was terrible. Because clients aren't as good at giving feedback as coaches, and even coaches aren't as good as giving feedback as they need to be. So like there's another skill to work on, the skill of giving and receiving feedback. So I think that like one of the reasons this evolved in CMC is because that's super important to take a look at your own coaching and to see how you're doing and get other perspectives. And one way you can do this right now is go to your last coaching call and watch it. You got to book time in your calendar to watch it. Like it's really hard to block off an hour and be like, or 2 hours, or whatever length your coaching call was, and watch it. And don't watch it distracted. Don't watch your own session distracted. Watch it, take notes and figure out what is it that you were doing and what worked, what didn't work, where's your edge of growth. And even if you don't have time to watch your session right now, just take a mental note, take a reflection right now and say like, where's the edge of my coaching growth? What's the thing that I need to work on?
Yeah, and we're talking about three levels of it, which Danny went back to personal reflection, which I think is very powerful. You taking the time to reflect on your own sessions, on your own business, on all that stuff, because that which means necessitates that you actually have space for you to do that, whether that's blocking out time to listen to your coaching calls or watch him, or actually sitting down reflecting after a session, whatever that might be. The second level of that is actually getting feedback from a community, which Daniel talked about. We do that in our community. There are very few communities where there are a bunch of coaches get together and give you feedback.
It's
And that
hard. It's
actually
hard to do.
it's hard, it's uncomfortable, the process too. And the only reason it's there is like we have gone through a process, we've heard feedback over and over, and that has actually resulted in improvement, no matter how uncomfortable that feedback was. And so we've made it an important part of our community where you're getting feedback from different levels of experience. And ultimately every coach is different. So we recommend, hey, take what is valuable for you, leave what is not. Go test out what you can improve, and that can accelerate your growth by 10 times more. So self reflection is useful to a degree, but then you also need outside reflection of people who've tested out this process. Not everything will be valuable, but the pieces that are will accelerate your growth. And then the last piece of it is that you need to put your stuff out there in the marketplace for it to be, because that's the ultimate decision maker of whether or not you're good enough as a coach. Because if you're not going to get paid clients. You're not going to, even if you get paid clients, you don't generate referrals out of it. You're not going to get people promoting you to their network. And again, this is a very hard thing to connect, not because it's complicated, because we connect our value, which we've been talking about, with our services. Otherwise, if you had a widget or some kind, like you're going to put this mouse out there and give it to people, if it's useful and it's actually helpful for people and it's really good, people are going to recommend it. If it's not, they're not going to recommend it, or they're going to recommend it less versus more.
I think that's a really great mouse.
It is a pretty good mouse.
Okay. Uh, I think here's another thing you can do. If you aren't able to do any of the things we just said, like there's lots of good things that Faisal, just the three levels. That's great. There's another thing you can do. You can actually put your transcript into an AI and ask it to evaluate. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to give you some ideas. And then you can don't, as I always say, don't turn your brain off. Like you can't just let AI like, and if you're the kind of person who will take whatever AI says as gold, and be careful with this. But like ask it. And like your prompting skills really matter here because it doesn't know what you're working on. It doesn't know your edge of growth as well as the market does, or as well as outside coaches might, or as well as even you do. But it can probably give you some of those baseline skill improvements. It can probably give you some feedback for thought, food for thought. It doesn't mean you should just take that as right. Because I've done that. I've asked it to evaluate sessions. I'm like, this is not right. They're like, okay, thank you, AI, but no thanks on this point and that point. But oh, that's actually an interesting point. I kind of see what you're saying, but it's actually more like this. So like you can take that intelligently and run it through your own brain and your own filter. Because AI is not going to be able to tell you everything about you and your clients and what's going on here. But it can give you some good feedback. I actually use AI as well to help me think through client insights. And honestly, it doesn't do that great a job still. I've been working on the prompting for a long time. It does some of it okay and some of it not. So it's a good brainstorming partner there. But a lot of the thought and reflection needs to come through you in your own brain, in your own heart.
Yeah.
Your own intuition is important here.
Yeah, and like this again, I don't know what's going to happen with this because when I was starting out as a coach, I was actually listening to my sessions after the first year when I was my coach forced me to actually was like challenged me to actually go list because I was very uncomfortable listening to the calls. When I listened to it, one of two reactions I had, it was like, "Oh, that was amazing! Oh my God, why am I still talking?"
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I was
totally.
sitting there.
Same.
I need to turn this thing off. It was either really good or really bad. And then once I got used to those two, I was hearing the more subtle things in the process. But see, and now we have access to AI where you can put a transcript. Still very useful because it gives you some perspective. But like Daniel's saying, you can't turn your brain off because AI will throw all kinds of stuff. Not only that, there's a level to it. So even if you're fully honest with yourself and you're using your mind, at some point it's just you and AI. You don't have any other feedback from people who are running real businesses and actually coaching real people, teams, and organizations, those kind of things. So you don't actually have feedback from real market data. You have it from an accumulation of experiences and theory, and you don't know how to sift through that because you don't even have enough experience to sift through that. So AI is probably more useful for somebody who has a lot more experience in these subtle areas and nuanced areas versus somebody who is less experienced because there are times where you're going to miss the thing and you're going to follow the rabbit hole of AI and you'll be like, why did I just do that?
Yeah, and it can send you down lots of rabbit holes that may be irrelevant, and actually potentially not potentially actually the opposite of what you want in some cases. If you're not, if you're not able to, you have to be honest, working with AI, you have to actually coach the AI when you're doing this kind of work too, especially. You got to be a good coach to the AI, right? Because you can, as I like to say, they used to say in the 80s, garbage in, garbage out, but garbage in now it's garbage in, beautiful garbage out sometimes,
It
right?
sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds great. And actually, they've reduced the latest model of ChatGPT has reduced hallucinations down from like 8.5% to 6%. So it's even less obvious that there's mistakes in there. And so, like, AI is still hallucinates, still isn't going to be perfect given your prompt levels. And so, like, you gotta watch out for that. But it can be also very useful at the same time.
And also think about like all these platforms from social media to now AI systems to anything you do. Like, for example, the last 2 weeks I actually paused looking at a lot of like ChatGPT, for example. I stopped looking because I was getting so much feedback back and it was overloading my mind and it wasn't half of it was not even useful. So I paused on it just to give myself space to
How long
kind
did
of
you take
step back.
off? How long did you stop
I've been
for?
taking off 2 weeks. I haven't looked at it, for
A
example, related
ChatGPT
to my
2 week fast?
fitness.
I love it.
That's like I was in it like multiple times a day, and it was like
Oh yeah.
exciting in the beginning, but after a while, I read it, it's like actually it's cluttering my own thought process if I'm there too much. So I
Yeah.
stepped
Some
back.
people
It
think
doesn't mean
actually,
I won't use it, but I'll go back when it's useful. And actually, and to keep in mind, it's a lot like their algorithms. They want you to be there constantly, so it's designed a lot like social media.
yeah, engagement and time on platform and social media is actually really valuable. But the longer you use AI, the more it'll want you to use, like the more it rewards the AI system, right? It's designed to keep you there because that's part of the business model. And also, the longer you use it, the more credits you use, and so the more upgrades you can do later for more higher tier whatever's. And also, as they integrate advertising into the platform, you'll be exposed to that too. So I think that's just a long-term business model to keep you engaged. And so I think just like everything else, it's really important to beware how deeply you get embedded with AI. And I love the idea of having a little ChatGPT fast, Faisal.
I needed it. It was based on
Yeah.
a need.
Yeah, I love you're the first person I've heard of who said that. Which I
No, like because I found my thoughts being much more cluttered. I was putting because I'm used to thinking a certain way, and when I was going there, it was of course influencing my thoughts. But I noticed that I was
it's
not
shaping
thinking
the
the
way
way
you
I used
think, right?
to. Yeah, so I had to take a pause to understand what my thought process is versus what ChatGPT is putting in my thought
Yeah,
process.
one of the things I like to do before putting my query in, I like to pause before I hit enter. It's like I ask my question, then I try to journal my own notes, even if it's just a minute or two. I like to journal my own notes or even type it on a notepad, and then hit enter and then compare because like I don't want to like let it drive my thinking all the time.
So,
And
so today I did a training. These are my cards. I didn't
Mhm.
look at ChatGPT at all, and I think the training went very well.
Nice, good, good. That's great. I love that. I think it's also very true that it's very easy to outsource your thinking to something like ChatGPT, but it's gonna train you in a certain direction, and it like it's designed a certain way, and the LLMs work a certain way, and so it will. It's kind of teaching us to think a certain way and to write a certain way and to interact a certain way. And for better or for worse, I think it's also really, really important that we don't, you know, overuse it to the point where that becomes our way. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot more that we can add. And goes back to our skills as coaches. Like part of the benefits that of having a coach. Actually, I think ChatGPT has increased the value of in-person coaching if you think about it because of the presence that you get with a human opposite you. Because people are being overwhelmed by ChatGPT every day. They need it fast. They also need humans and connection, and a coaching environment is really good. That's why it matters to improve as a coach, to continue to grow those skill sets, to continue to show up better and better for your clients.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to make one last contrast before we end today's podcast. Now, compare that to our community. For example, we had a group call today. It's a 90-minute call, but we were done pretty much at the top of the hour and we had about 30 minutes left. I asked for insights. We didn't need to go any longer because the intentions are different. ChatGPT wants you to be constantly engaged. What we're focused on is results. I'm like, now go and use it. I'll give you 25 minutes back. Now, that doesn't always happen because we might need to support somebody else on the call, but and then other times when I've talked to clients, they have access to our group every week. They can show up every week. Yes, there's a certain level of engagement they need to have, and but I tell them directly, you don't need to show up to a call if you don't need to. I'd rather you go do the work because my business is only going to move forward if you get results. Your business is going to move forward if you get results. So they're aligned. Like there's an alignment, there's a symbiotic relationship. But with something like a platform like ChatGPT, social media, it's actually the inverse of that. They don't care about the results, they care about the engagement you have with the platform. And a lot of programs are kind of set up like this. So be careful what kind of community you go into, what are they interested in. I like going to places where whether it's a business, product, or my services, that my involvement either improve their reputation or doesn't. Especially when it comes to communities and stuff, and they care enough that hey, they need to move my results forward. Of course, I need to take accountability for my actions, but they need to support me to go towards a result. That is a very key indicator for what kind of community you're going into.
And also, that's a great point for coaching skill sets. Like, how good a coach are you? How focused on the results of the client are you? Right? It's another baseline skill, I think.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, if you enjoyed this podcast today, please share it with coaching friends that you know, and you can join our community, join our free Facebook community at cmc.coach. You can message us directly there, and you can listen to this podcast every week, almost every week, including some holidays like today. But please leave a comment, reply what stood out for you, what insights did you have, and Faisal, anything to add before we go?
Oh, please share this with other coaches. They might need to hear this. And then one last point I'll leave everybody with is remember, you get paid to help people create results, not just to show up on a call. And it's your job as a business owner and as a coach to keep improving your ability to show up better so your clients get results.
Love
I'll
it.
pause it.
All right. See you later. See you next time.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.